Hi VC, it's Rob here with another video, and this is a response to a video I saw a couple of days ago by Ross Goodall, one of my favourite channels on the VC, and it was all about your favourite album covers. Ross showed his top 10, so here's my top 10 in no particular order, and the first one is a really iconic one. Probably one of the most famous album covers of all time, and it's this one. Never Mind the Bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols, and this was designed by Jamie Reid, and originally this album was going to be called God Save the Sex Pistols, but Steve Cook had heard some fans saying never mind the bollocks, and it just struck a chord with him, and so that's the album name that they came up with. And there was a huge hullabaloo about this album when it came out. There was a lot of prosecutions, record shops displaying this image. There were a lot of legal disputes. The obscene publications law came into effect, but I mean, you see people walking down the street now with this T-shirt with this emblem on, and it just sums up the Sex Pistols really. I mean, Jamie Reid, who designed this, he was the guy who designed the single covers for the Sex Pistols singles as well. So it's just a really iconic sleeve, and I think any top 10's got to have this one on. So yeah, never mind the bollocks. I also like the back as well, with like the newspaper print for the songs. So yeah, that's my first one, Sex Pistols. Now the second one is a pretty iconic sleeve as well. Sort of a love it or hate it sleeve really, from 1966, and it's this one, and it's Pet Sounds, of course, from the Beach Boys, and this photo was taken in San Diego Zoo, and it's just one of those images. I mean, I've got a t-shirt with this image on, and just something so random as feeding some goats, and it, I mean, the Beach Boys album covers in the early days just tended to show the Beach Boys. Sort of getting towards the end of the 60s and the early 70s, they had a few more interesting sleeves, but I just think it's really iconic, and it's one of my favourites. So that's Pet Sounds from the Beach Boys. Now the third one I'm going to show is an album sleeve which is relatively recent, from 2017, and it's King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard, and this is Sketches of Brunswick East, and this is kind of a bit of a homage to the Miles Davis album. And I just like the imagery really, just a really clever drawing that sort of catches my interest, and I think any of the King Gizzard albums you could have in the top 10, because I think all their artwork's really striking, and this album was the third release from the 5 they released in 2017. So yeah, firm favourites of mine, and I even love the sleeves. So that's King Gizzard. Now, the next sleeve I'm going to show is an album that came out in 1980, and it's this one. And this was taken with a Polaroid SX70 instant camera. And Storm Horrigan was the person who designed it, and Peter Gabriel was involved in the design, and they were just really impressed that Peter Gabriel was quite happy to have his face disfigured on the album cover. I mean, this is got some pretty strong political messages on this album. Anti-war song, Games Without Frontiers, and the anti-apartheid song, Biko. But I just think it's a great image, and Peter Gabriel's an artist that only the last 6 months I've really been getting into, and I really like his artwork. So yeah, Peter Gabriel, and I kind of call that one Melt. Now, the next album is an album that was released in 1972, and it was this artist's third album, and it's Pink Moon by Nick Drake, and it's a real Dali-esque sleeve designed by Michael Trevick. And Michael Trevick was a close friend of Nick Drake's sister, and when this album was released, originally they wanted to show an image of Nick on the front of the album, but because Nick's health was deteriorating so much, they decided that they couldn't really use an image of Nick, so all they had to go off was sort of Pink Moon, so they put kind of a moon on it. And it reminds me of the sleeves by sort of prog artists in the early 70s, but it's pretty different to any album sleeve that I've got. So yeah, Pink Moon, there's the back, and it's a really iconic album, this, a must have really. Now the next album is from 2002, and it's this band's 10th album, and it's this one, The Flaming Lips, and Yoshi battles the Pink Robots, and this is a gatefold. So yeah, I mean, the Flaming Lips are another band whose artwork is really quite unique to them, and I really love sort of the space age look on this sleeve, and it's also a great album. So yeah, Flaming Lips. Now the next album, on Ross's top 10, he showed Armed Forces by Elvis Costello, and I've chosen an Elvis Costello album from 1980, and it's this one, Get Happy, which was designed by Barney Bubbles. And yeah, this is got the wear on. It looks like it's a worn album, but it's actually was like that originally. I can remember buying it and being a bit mystified by it. And also the track listing on the back isn't in the right order, which is quite confusing. And this has got the original inner with it, and also this album has got this. I don't know whether people who have got this album have got this with it as well, which was originally, it's like an original poster that was with the album, which is in really good condition. So yeah, this was Elvis Costello's fourth album, his third album with the Attractions, and it was quite different. It was a little bit sort of R&B, a little bit ska, produced by Nick Lowe, and yeah, it's one of my favourite Elvis Costello albums, and probably my favourite sleeve. Now the next cover is an album that came out in 1980, and it's this one. Never seen anyone on the VC show that sleeve, and it's Beat Crazy, and this is the Joe Jackson Band. And this album didn't really have much success at all. A lot of it's thought at the time the Joe Jackson Band didn't tour this album, so that kind of affected the sales. But I very rarely see this album. It's such a striking cover. So yeah, it's one of my favourites. Joe Jackson and Beat Crazy. Now 2 more to go, and this album was released in 1982, and it's this one, Oh No It's Devo, And I've spoken about Devo before. In the UK, Devo had very limited chart success, if any at all, really. And that means picking up their albums isn't easy because there's not many of them knocking around. I mean, Whip It was one of my favourite singles. I think it was 1980, and I remember hearing it thinking it was going to be a #1 single, and it never even touched the top 40. But I like Devo's imagery a lot, and you know, this just sums them up really. So that's Oh No, It's Devo. And the last album is an album. Ross showed a Style Council album cover, so I'm going to do the same. And it's this one, Cafe Blur, from 1984. And in America, this album was called My Ever Changing Moods. That was kind of Paul Weller's and the Style Council's biggest hit in America. But when this album came out, I mean, the Jam split at the end of '82. The Style Council released 4 commercially pretty successful singles in '83. So we were waiting for this album in '84, and it was a bit of a shock to the system. You know, 6 instrumentals, guest vocalist Tracy Thorn, Ben Watt appeared on it. You know, Paul Weller was a minor player on this album really, but it's a really good album. I really enjoy it, and Paul was going through this kind of French phase, so you know, he had quite a good image on the sleeve there. So that's my 10. You know, I'd enjoy seeing anybody else showing their 10 favourite album covers. It's a pretty easy one to get into, and you know, I really enjoyed seeing Ross's video. So that's it from me. I'd just like to say thank you to anyone who's a subscriber to my channel. Thanks for watching my videos and commenting, I really appreciate it. And have a great weekend. Bye for now.